By the time the police cruiser rolled away from my driveway, half the neighborhood was standing in the street staring at my front window like it was a crime scene. 12 hours earlier, the HOA president told me she'd fine me until I learned respect. By sunrise, she was the one losing control of the board she used to rule like a courtroom. I live in Oak Ridge Estates outside Columbus, one of those neat suburban pockets where every mailbox matches and every lawn looks like it was cut with a ruler. I bought my place because it was quiet, stable, predictable, the kind of street where people wave, keep to themselves, and complain about leaf blowers, not lawsuits. Then Linda Parker became president of our Homeowners Association. If you've ever met someone who confuses authority with ownership, you know the type. Clipboard mirrored sunglasses, fake smile, real appetite for control. She called it protecting property values. What she actually did was patrol the block like she was code enforcement, and judge and jury rolled into one. My turn came on a Tuesday. I got home from work and found a bright orange violation notice taped to my door, flapping in the wind like a warning flag. Unauthorized window treatment color, non-compliant with Section 4.2c. Fine, $150 per day. I stood there in my own driveway reading it twice, then 3 times because my curtains were white. Not vintage cream, not eggshell, white. I bought them off a shelf at Target, same as half the country. I caught Linda 2 houses down measuring somebody's grass with an actual metal ruler. Linda, my curtains are white. She didn't even look up at first. They read ivory from the curb. I'm sorry, they what? They read ivory, she repeated like she was explaining gravity to a child. Replace them by Friday or the fine escalates. I replaced them. The next day burned a vacation. Half-day took pictures, emailed the architectural committee, and thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. 2 days later, another notice. New issue, texture and light transparency inconsistent with community standards. New fine $300 a day for non-compliance after warning. That was the moment I stopped treating this like a misunderstanding. I printed every notice, every email, every timestamp. I requested the exact rule language. Linda replied with that polished, passive-aggressive tone people use when they know they're bluffing, but hope you won't call it. Per governing documents, approved coverings must present white to exterior and preserve visual uniformity. I read the CC and Rs that night, then the bylaws, then the design handbook appendix. Nobody reads unless they're in a fight. I sat at my kitchen table with a highlighter and a legal pad until 1:30 a.m. And when I finally found the crack in her argument, I laughed out loud. The rule regulated window coverings, blinds, drapes, shades. It didn't ban decorative glass. Not a line, not a sentence, nothing. The next morning I called a guy named Vinny Moretti, 3rd-generation stained glass artist shop out in Gahanna, old-school craftsman, straight shooter. I told him I needed a front window panel, custom-sized, mounted, clean building code, compliant, no profanity, no nudity, nothing obscene, just unmistakably satirical. Unmistakably satirical, he said, and I could hear him grin through the phone. Now that's a design note. Over coffee in his workshop, we sketched a concept inspired by Dante. Symbolic, dramatic, obvious enough for anyone paying attention, legally harmless on paper. Figures in formal robes, faces stylized but recognizable, arranged in a scene about vanity and judgment. No names, no slurs, no text. Just art, light, and irony. While Vinny fabricated the panel, Linda kept sending notices, and yes, the numbers kept rising. I paid the disputed fines into a separate account, documented everything, and refused to give her the reaction she wanted. No yelling in the street, no social media meltdown, no scene she could frame as hostile homeowner behavior. Installation day came with a city permit taped inside my window and an insured contractor unloading a crate the size of a door. Linda appeared before the second suction cup touched glass. You do not have architectural approval for this alteration. I handed her the permit copy and the code citation for window replacement and fixed glazing. This is still a violation, she snapped. Then cite the section I said, in writing. She called the non-emergency line and reported an unauthorized exterior modification in progress. An officer arrived, checked the permit, checked the contractor license, checked that nothing blocked visibility standards. Then he gave us that tired, neutral look cops have when they realize this is not criminal law. This is neighborhood politics with receipts. "Ma'am," he told Linda, "this appears civil and permitted." By sunset, the glass was in. From the sidewalk in daylight it looked elegant, rich colors, old-world style, clean lead lines. At night, with the interior lights on, it turned into a spotlighted message nobody could ignore. At 8:30 p.m., Linda made her usual loop around the cul-de-sac. I waited until she was in front of my house, then switched on the floor lamp behind the panel. People came out one by one, then in clusters, then with folding arms and silent faces. The kind of silence that means everyone understands exactly what they're seeing and exactly why it exists. Linda stood frozen for 3 full seconds, then exploded. "This is targeted harassment. This is intimidation. This is, you are done here." She called the police again. Different officer this time, same outcome. No criminal content, no protected class targeting, no threats, no code violation on scene. She turned to me, voice shaking with anger. "Emergency board meeting tomorrow. You are being sanctioned." "Great," I said. "I'll be there." She scheduled it for 9 a.m. on my front lawn because apparently irony was now the neighborhood theme. Folding tables, bottled water, stack of binders, 4 board members, maybe 30 residents hovering in the background pretending not to listen. Linda opened with a prepared statement and tried to bulldoze straight to penalties: $5,000, immediate fine, legal action authorization, forced removal order. Then my attorney stepped forward. David Gold. Real estate litigation, calm tone. No theatrics, binder tabs color-coded like he was performing surgery. He waited for Linda to finish, then asked one question. "Can the president identify the covenant language prohibiting fixed stained glass?" Linda flipped pages, stalled, then pointed at the coverings clause again. David didn't raise his voice. He just dismantled the logic and sequence. "Coverings are removable interior treatments. This is fixed glazing. Subjective aesthetic dislike is not enforceable prohibition. Selective enforcement opens the association to exposure. If they compel destruction of lawful commissioned artwork, absent explicit authority, they risk damages, attorney fees, and personal liability arguments against directors acting beyond governing language." He set 3 documents on the table: permit approval, licensed installation record, and a pre-litigation notice template ready to file. The temperature in that meeting dropped 10 degrees. Karen Mitchell, treasurer, leaned back and stopped nodding. Jerry Walsh, vice president, stopped making eye contact with Linda. You could watch the math happening in real time, not moral math, financial math. A man from 2 streets over raised his hand. "Are our dues paying for this fight?" No one answered. Another neighbor spoke up. "My mailbox notice got reversed last month after I questioned Linda's interpretation. Is this pattern documented?" I handed over a folder with dates, notices, photos, and email chains. Linda tried to regain the room voice, sharp hands chopping the air. "This homeowner has undermined board authority and created public disruption." David answered before I had to. "Authority is limited by documents. Disruption is not a legal category." When Linda called for an immediate vote, Karen said, "I'm not voting yes on this without independent counsel." Jerry followed. Same. Motion failed on the spot. Linda slammed her clipboard shut so hard paper slid off the table and onto the grass. For a second, nobody moved. Then she said, "This board is being manipulated," grabbed her bag, and walked off in heels that kept sinking into wet turf. That should have been the end, but paperwork always takes one more beat. In the next quarterly bulletin, the Homeowners Association announced a freeze on discretionary aesthetic fines pending policy revision. Mandatory written citations with exact covenant references and outside review before litigation votes. 2 weeks later, Linda resigned for personal reasons. No parade, no victory lap, no group photo on my porch. Just one ordinary morning where the street looked like a street again and the orange notices stopped appearing on doors like weather alerts. I didn't win by shouting louder. I won by documenting everything, reading every line, and forcing power to stay inside the rules it pretended to defend.